Not in any way unusual. People have to understand this is par for the course. These abortionists are deeply damaged. They are incredibly conflicted within their own mind and heart. You can't kill babies without really messing yourself up. And one of the manifestations of how messed up they are is what they do with the bodies of these babies. They hold them like this guy is holding them in his home. They play with them. I mean, we know, we've been looking deep inside the abortion industry for decades, and one of the things, for example, one of the stories I recall most vividly is the wishbone, the wishbone game. They actually play wishbone with the bodies of these aborted babies in some of these abortion facilities. These people you look at this behavior and you say, what's wrong with these people? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with them. That's the damage abortion does. That's how you warp and distort and gravely damage your psyche, your sanity, when you get to the point where tearing babies apart is actually your line of work. It's sad. It should make us appropriately angry and also appropriately compassionate towards these abortionists. As we always say, the abortionists are not our enemy. They are captive to the enemy, and they're captive to the enemy in a deep way, morally and spiritually. But psychologically, the damage it gets manifested. And if you don't respect the baby alive, how are you going to respect the baby dead? You don't. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything to you, these bodies. So those are my initial thoughts.
There was a story, I don't know if you caught it last night, I think it was on EWTN News Nightly, where they were interviewing some of the sidewalk counselors that were trying to reach out to this abortionist Klopfer. Mm-hmm. And apparently they were making some progress.
That's right.
He was speaking with them, and then toward the end of his life, he even started going to adoration.
Yes, and this often, we see this often happen. This is how Norma McCorvey's conversion started. She started going to next door to the office of the pro-life Operation Rescue that moved in right next to the abortion facility where she was working. And we see this dynamic a lot, and abortionists that I've dialogued with and so forth. What happens, the turning point is this: when they realize it's not personal. What I mean is, they see us, they know that we protest abortion, we adamantly oppose what they do. But once they come to realize that we oppose what they do, not because it's them doing it, but because of what it is, then the dynamic changes, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm not being attacked by these people. I'm not even being judged by them. It's the baby, it's abortion, it's the mom and the dad. They're concerned sincerely about the issue. And the pro-life people there, where he was practicing, were able to convey their sincerity. That goes a long way. It's the sincerity of our pro-life position that, okay, they know we seriously disagree with what they're doing, but once they see it's not a personal attack, then it's like, all right, let me see what makes these people tick. And they're fascinated very often. And this apparently was the path that he started to go down.
So you never know. And I was listening to the interview, and the pro-life counselor said, we don't know what happened in the end with him and God, but I guess it's possible at the end of his life that he could have, confessed and had a change of heart. I mean, that's between him and God, right?
Yeah.
We can only pray for that.
Yeah. That's right. No, and those things we don't, those are God's concern. But what that we gave witness to a person like this, that we were always available if he wanted to come and talk. This is the attitude we have to have towards all of them, right across the board. But understand, the deep psychological conflicts. It's not only manifested in the way they treat the bodies of the aborted babies, but substance abuse in their own lives is rampant. As as a way of dealing with the pain of killing babies. Another thing that's rampant is breakdown in their own relationships. So, their family life is, all in tatters. And I mean, these are, as the book Line 5 phrases it, the book that Mark Crutcher wrote back in the mid-'90s. I helped him with it. And it catalogs all these horrors inside the abortion industry. The chapter about the abortionists is called Vacant Souls. And that's a stirring phrase, vacant souls. It's what we see with the Centurions, the Society of Centurions. These people actually have a resentment about what they do, which may sound strange. You may figure, they think they're serving women, and they do tell themselves that lie. But they're resentful of what they do because they look at abortion as this is society's unresolved conflicts working themselves out on at the expense of these babies, and we're the ones that have to do the dirty work of actually pulling the babies apart and whatnot. And so there's a dimension of resentment there that's going on. They're just really messed up, let's put it that way. And we need to. Well, that's why when they leave, if they leave, and many people have been leaving the abortion industry. The first thing that has to happen is they need to get to healing. The first thing is not for them to give their testimony. The first thing is for them to get healing. And that, first of all, it's a lifelong journey, but the initial phases of healing, we're talking about years of hard work of grieving these babies and getting serious counseling and getting back to some measure of sanity.
So in terms of what we should be doing with this information, what I was suggesting and discussing with Dr. Monica Miller before you came on is that this is another opportunity because I think it's God's timing. All of these things seem to be coming out. The left is just losing its mind, and they keep stumbling over themselves and just showing their extreme views. And all of the candidates running for president support abortion on demand through 9 months of pregnancy, infanticide. They refuse to talk about the issue of helping a baby born alive. And they want the government to pay for all of this. And then you see these stories, these horrific stories. We're going to talk after the break about the current case going on in California regarding David DeLayden. And you see this story, so many stories about abortion and the horrors of the abortion industry. Crickets from the candidates. Why, if they really care about women, aren't they calling for an investigation and more regulation? That the lawmakers who are calling for the investigations are the pro-life lawmakers, obviously. Yeah. But why aren't these candidates from the top on down running for various offices speaking up and making demands? Where is Planned Parenthood? Because, they supposedly run their operation so cleanly, a clean concentration camp. Where's NARAL, Pro-Choice America, and all this? Just like with the Gosnell case, crickets.
For these people, the abortion advocates, the Democrat candidates, these babies are literally a non-entity. They literally don't exist. This is what we the more we can think about it this way, the more their actions will make sense, if we can even say that. It's a non-entity. So once that mother says, I want this baby aborted, I want to have an abortion, then the baby doesn't exist, therefore the body doesn't exist. Even if the baby's born alive, that baby's still a non-entity. That decision to have an abortion warps and changes reality itself, and everything gets wiped away. This is the way they think. And so when the bodies are discovered, they don't know. There is no response. They can't have any response because this is a non-entity. So what we have to do is, that's why we have to tell the story, because the good that comes from this, and God always draws good out of evil, is that seeing these bodies, talking about these bodies, and by the way, they should be photographed, each and every one of them, and those photographs circulated and posted. These bodies show us, remind us, this is not an abstract issue. When we debate about abortion, it's not just a debate about viewpoints, it's about victims. It's not just about beliefs. What do we believe about the sanctity of life? We talk in these conceptual terms. It's not just about beliefs. It's about bloodshed. It's about arms and legs. It's about skulls and bones. It's about flesh and blood. And the more we can get the conversation into that arena, what are we doing? We're connecting with the humanity of these children. Interestingly, Teresa, you may have noticed this, these bodies were discovered, the announcement of the discovery came on the very day of the National Day of Remembrance for Aborted Babies, when we were having this past Saturday these nationwide simultaneous prayer services at the graves where aborted babies are buried, and that's why I co-founded this observance together with Monica and Eric Scheidler, and the reason we did this was precisely the point we're making now. It's not an abstract issue about viewpoints and beliefs, it's about victims and bloodshed, it's concrete, it's flesh and blood, it's humanity, and the more we connect with that, the sooner we'll get to a resolution of this issue.
It is just about 8:47. We're chatting with Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priester Life. So let's continue the conversation and talk about what's going on with David DeLayden in California.
Yes. Now, we have a historic thing going on right now. This will come out more in the weeks to come. But David is taking the stand. Some of the people that were interviewed on these videos that he and Sandra Merritt made are taking the stand. He has been right away, as soon as he did this investigative journalism project, of course, the other side, the abortion industry, reacted with, let's persecute him. Let's make him the bad guy, not the people who are doing the evil things he exposed, but the person who exposed them. And by the way, that's always the case. I mean, even if we show pictures of aborted babies, we're the bad guy. Not the ones who kill the babies, mind you, but we are. Even when we do funerals for aborted babies, or I show people, I always advocate, open funerals, open casket. We become the bad guy. Look what Father is doing. What do you mean, look what Father is doing? Well, look at the baby. Look at who killed that baby. So, what David did, exposing the spotlight on this, and Sandra Merritt, now, right away, the abortion industry made them the bad guys. And, by the way, it was Kamala Harris who began the persecution of David, because she was Attorney General in California, and this should not be lost on anybody. While she was doing that, carrying out the business of Planned Parenthood, prosecuting these pro-life people who exposed their evil deeds, guess what was happening? She was attending fundraisers put on by Planned Parenthood for her Senate campaign. Now, if that's not a conflict of interest, then I don't know what is. But that's important for people to keep in mind. Now, what's happening is, this is the natural progression. I mean, these things take years, these trials and these lawsuits and everything. And the judges have been, by the way, throwing out more and more of the charges, which, of course, is to be expected, because the abortion industry always goes way overboard, and, they want to throw in as many different charges as they can think of. But basically it boils down to, was there a violation of law, a violation of was there a reasonable expectation of privacy that was violated? And, David went to a number of pro-life leaders when he started this project, including me. And I knew from the beginning, as did many of us who gave him input and advice, that he was doing everything according to the books. He was doing everything according to the law. The process by which these videos were obtained was legal. But that's the issue that's being worked out in the court now over there in San Francisco. But more important than the legal question being resolved is the exposing of this evil, and that's going to be what we have to hold on to. It's gold. As the legal questions get worked out, by the way, this is a pattern. Let's think back, for example, the partial birth abortion ban, going back 20 years now. And that was challenged in court all over the country. Well, the issue is not just the legal matter of does this law withstand constitutional scrutiny. What is pure gold for the pro-life movement is what was said on that stand by that practicing abortionist as the legal question was being worked out. What's more important than the legal question is the evidence that this man, this woman gave as to what an abortion actually is. That is what we need to hold on to, put on a lampstand in a bright place, like Jesus says, and like Paul says, expose the works of darkness. And this is the great aspect of what is going on right now. We're going to gather together all this testimony from this trial, and we need to all do this together, make it available, make it accessible. Priests have to start preaching about this. People need to be blogging about this, and we need to be just sharing
these stories.
That's
Even
right.
just sharing the news stories about Delayden and about the situation in Indiana and Illinois with this abortionist.
Share it, right.
This investigation. And share what I like to do is to share the secular news stories, even though some of them are very biased. I mean, so far what I've seen is okay. It's not perfect. But it's the state of the media right now, but it's better than I thought it would be. They're not giving the babies much humanization. They're calling it, remains and whatnot. But they are covering it. And so we share these stories, and I think about what you always say, Father, is ask people questions. Okay, is what you mean when you call yourself in support of legalized abortion?
That's right.
Because this is the result. This is what happens. This is what we have. This is reality.
That's right. That's right. Listen, a support of abortion is essentially a flight from reality. My friend Dr. Philip Ney, Canadian psychiatrist, I've learned a lot from him over the years. He actually goes so far as to say that pro-choice, when you mean, you know what you mean, you're actually talking about supporting the killing of babies by abortion, is a form of mental illness. Now, the people should not be offended at that. Think about this. What does mental illness in all its various stages consist of? And this is a psychiatrist speaking. It consists of a break with reality, does it not? I mean, you break with reality to different degrees, right? I mean, so all of us distort reality a little bit, and we're all neurotics. Remember that book from a long time ago, We Neurotics? We've all got, and we can laugh about it. We're all affected by the, fallen human nature. But when it gets more and more serious, I mean, a total break with reality, that's what we call psychosis. It's no longer neurosis, it's psychosis. Anyway, you've got this spectrum, okay, and what's measured along the spectrum is to what extent are you breaking with reality. To say that these babies are not babies, when the babies are staring you in the face, literally, to say that this is not the killing of a human being when any grade school student of biology can tell you when a human life begins, this is such a radical denial of reality. For these presidential candidates trying to say that right up until the moment of birth, that child is not a person, and you can kill that child.
Yeah.
It's a break with reality, and so yes.
That's why they can't talk about it, because once
they
do, then they open up the discussion for the reality of the situation. Father, fascinating conversation, so helpful. We're out of time. Father Frank Pavone, priestforlife.org, and he is our advisor on Catholic View for Women. Janet and I are having a discussion after the show about Catholic View. I don't know where to begin. There's so many things to cover in the next year on the program.
Yes.
And we look forward to your input and our listeners' input as well. We'll be right back. It's a Wednesday morning. It's Catholic Connection, a co-production of EWTN and Ave Maria Radio. Stay tuned.